Going to, Malloy, sockers it off the ground, no way! That has to be one of the best goals you'll ever see in the AFLW, and of course it's Chloe Malloy.
G'day and welcome to GameDay Squad Women's Aussie Rules. I'm Dyl, that's Pitty, and we are the Fantasy Bros. We are so pumped for the Women's Aussie Rules season to kick off in probably just, 5 or so days away, Pitty?
Yeah,
Welcome
this weekend, mate. This weekend. So Sunday we all kick off that first game of round one, and yeah, I'm good. I can't wait, mate. We're obviously coming towards the conclusion of the men's season, but the women's season's just kicking off. So yeah, I love this time of year, mate, where we get that crossover because there's just more footy to watch. But yeah, I'm good. What about yourself?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I just thought of this. We haven't done a full show together yet, you and I. I think the only two Fantasy Bros that haven't shared the stage together. So I'm really pumped for this. Look, anyone that is sitting there watching this thinking, what is Fantasy Bros Dyl doing on a Aussie Rules show or podcast? Look, I'm not going to pretend like I know anything that's going on right now. So that's why I've got you, Pitty, to talk us through all of the big changes and some of the new features that GameDay Squad Women's Aussie Rules is going to bring to us this season. And look, I know we've got a few packs to open, but you've already had a bit of luck earlier in the week with a couple of decent packs that you've had.
Yeah, I have. I've been on a good run recently. Let's just put it that way. But I don't want to give too much away. I think I want to keep a couple surprises for the competition this year. So I don't want to. Yeah, I want to keep my cards pretty close to my chest at this stage. But if you're in Discord and you got a part of Bingo Night last night, you would have seen a few nice cards. We had a legend, Maddie Prasparkas, and actually, how's this, mate? Haz reckons I'm kissed, but I think this is just good coaching. My last pack for the night, and I had 3 bingo hits to get. And one of the last cards I got, I was like, I needed a legend, I needed a Maddie Prasparkas, and I needed an Ebony Marinoff. I also needed a no diamond in a unique pack, but I didn't have any unique packs left. But anyway, I was like, let's see how many hits we can get. The last pack I opened, I got a legend Maddie Prasparkas. So I got 2 bingo hits in one. And then the last couple cards I flipped over, one was an Ebony Marinoff. So yeah, Haz reckons it's good. He reckons it's luck, and I just reckon it's good coaching there. But anyhow, hopefully we can, emulate a bit of that luck there tonight with our packs that we open there, mate. And speaking of those packs, to all our listeners and our viewers, and hopefully we're talking to a few new coaches here who are interested in AFL or Women's Aussie Rules, I should say. And you can see we've got a code there on screen you can use if you sign up today at GameDay Squad. If you put in that code FBARW26, that would get you 3 9-player common packs to get your journey started here in GameDay Squad, and in particular for Women's Aussie Rules.
Yeah, unreal. There's plenty of time to get your squad sorted as well. And look, the best thing about GameDay Squad, if you haven't been around the platform before, it is a week-to-week competition as well as season long. But the benefit is if you do miss week 1, there's no panic stations at all. You can jump in, you can build your squad, and you can start winning plenty of cash and pack prizes as well. And look, talking about some of the prizes that GameDay Squad have on offer, they have a really special prize for seasonal coaches who do well at for the whole season, and they're the prize cards, and they go to generally the top 10 in each competition, and that happens in a live draft style show. And you and Haz fortunate enough to be involved in that earlier in the season, or preseason, I should say, and you can see your cards on screen. Talk us through your selections and why you picked the player that you did.
Yeah, how good. Oh, mate, I think I was actually thinking about this recently, right? The why we play fantasy sports. I think the prize card in GameDay Squad is the ultimate prize to play for. Like, we've got our weekly cash and prizes, but there's no other fantasy competition where you can win something that can actually help you next season. So this card I have forever, and it's got my name on it, and you can see Haz there on the left. It's got his name on it, his team from last year, and that can't be taken away from you. So that in itself is incredible. And when you talk about salary and point multipliers as well, these prize cards have a salary hit of a silver, and they then have a points multiplier of a diamond. So it is essentially a cheat code to be playing in your squad, and it's rewarded for really good performance. So to all our new coaches as well, like Haz and I, we were in the same position this time last year. We had no cards. Like, we opened up GameDay Squad, we signed up to Women's Aussie Rules, we put our team names in, and mate, we started building our squad from those bronze packs. And as you can see, Haz there, he got his prize card in starter, and I got mine in contender. So we were just starting out, and we had, I guess that's probably why we went those 2 players you can see on screen there, Dylan, and Ashling Maloney for Haz and a Tani White for myself. Our thinking was we were down the order, so I think I had picked 28 from, was it 28? No, we were in the 30s, would have been early 30s. So the thing with Women's Aussie rules that we'll communicate tonight when we get to our player previews is that there are some really big scoring players, particularly in the midfield, that if you really don't have those cards there in terms of your prize card, like I think you've got to start to look elsewhere. So we didn't really want to pick someone who we thought, oh, we play them once every 2 or 3 weeks. I wanted to pick a prize card I could look at every single week in my squad, and so did Haz. And that's why we went those 2 players on screen. So Aisling Maloney, she is pretty much a very solid forward. You're going to play almost every week, or you could play almost every week in the forward line. She plays for the Geelong Cats, and so that's why I has picked her. Thought that was a really safe play every single week, and someone who that most of the competition will play quite regularly. So it's a little bit of that, that one up there on the rest of the comp. And then my player, we'll talk about why Tani White is a very relevant player for season 2026, but I took a bit of a punt, mate. She was a midfielder last year, and I just knew that she was not going to be a midfielder in season 2026. I knew she was going to be a defender, and I thought I would, I'll try and hit a 6, and I'll hopefully back myself in, and that she'll get that defender status, and she'll be a great pick in season 2026. Lo and behold, she is a defender for us this year, and she's a very relevant player we'll talk about later on.
Mate, we might need to change your name to the Oracle after that pick. That's unreal. Look, let's break down a few things, though. If you are new to GameDay Squad and new to Women's Aussie Rules, there's a couple of things that we touched on there. We touched on a couple of the different competitions. So there are a number of competitions. There's some standard competitions, as well as we're going to talk about some new special comps that GameDay Squad have brought along. Look, firstly, the standard competitions range from starter, contender, classic, challenger, and champion. Each of those have their sort of their salary caps, their limits on the cards that you can play, as well as some of the different aspects of the game. As you touched on, coming into GDS, brand new, opened a few packs, used the promo code. You had a couple of the extra packs there. You got a whole lot of bronze cards for free to begin your journey. That's where you can start your starter competition. As we saw, that's where you and Haz had some success in that starter competition using those bronzes. As you build up over time, and it's something that I've done this season, particularly with the Aussie rules side of things, where I've just followed your lead on pretty much every player that you've talked about. I'm at a point where I'm starting to field not just my starter squad, but a classic and a contender squad as well, because I've opened packs. We've got silvers, we've got golds, platinums, etc. And each of those have their own multiplier. So the silver, we get a 1.1 multiplier on that base score of that player, gold 1.2, all the way through to that legend that you talked about of a 1.5. The other thing that we probably should touch on is the legends are 1 of 1. You can only have that one player with that legend for this season. So it's an unreal advantage that you have. And those prize cards are 1 of 1 as well. And you get a variety of salary and multiplier on top of that, as we talked about. So plenty of reasons to jump in now and get your squad started. It doesn't feel like you're starting on the back foot, because you can come in at any point and you can score heaps of prizes, open a bunch of packs, and have some pretty decent squad depth around some of those different competitions. So talk to us about some of the changes to some of the standard competitions. So classic, challenger, champion, some of the more higher tiered competitions where a new user might not be coming in at that tier yet, but some of those users that maybe were in last year that are moving over to these this year. Talk to us about some of those changes.
And I think that's why I put it on screen, right? Starter and contender are not on screen because they haven't undergone any changes this year. So our starter comp is still all bronze cards. It's where our new coaches are going to start out, just like Haz and I did last year. And there's no changes there. It's a level playing field. Maybe the one thing I will emphasize about a starter and a contender is that, we talk about our competition sort of scaling up, so to speak, in terms of our GDS coach experience. So a starter coach is not going to be going up against these coaches who've been playing the game for multiple years, who have lots of prize cards and these legend cards we've been talking about. You're just not going to play them. Like, they're in a different comp altogether. So if you come in, you can only really be playing sort of that starter, contender, classic. Obviously, you could maybe play those higher comps another way if you really wanted to, but typically that's where you'll start out. And our coaches who want to play in these higher comps, like a classic, a challenger, and a champion, well, they can't really be playing down in that starter and contender where our new coaches are. So I just wanted to emphasize that a little bit. If you would like a bit more information on that, feel free to reach out to me on the Discord if you want, if you're involved in that community. But yeah, in terms of our classic and our challenger and our champion, the big changes for me last year with Classic, we had the lowest rarity was a silver for a player. You actually couldn't play any bronzes in that competition. So I remember I would still put a team in, but I was not very competitive. Whereas now coaches can actually play bronze cards. I think that's the biggest change for Classic this year. And again, it's probably similar to other sports, right? You can go up to, so you can play bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. Platinum is the highest. You can't play any higher rarity. There's no legends, and there is no diamonds. However, there is a special card limit. So coaches can play 2 special cards in their classic side. So that looks like an all-star, for example. So a coach could have an all-star Ebony Marinoff, and they could have an all-star Matty Gay. And that's their 2 all-stars. They're maxed out. They can't play any more all-stars in their classic side. However, we know that a special card in GameDay Squad is not just an all-star card. It includes prize cards as well, just like we spoke about before. So that is a sublimit of 1 prize card. So my Tani White, for example, if I want to play her in Classic, hypothetically, if I had another prize card, I couldn't play another one there. So I can play 1 prize card and 1 all-star card. That's my limit of 2 special cards. Or I could go 2 all-star cards, for example. So I think they're the main things for that competition. In terms of Challenger, however, there is a special card limit of 6. And I'm actually not quite sure if that's any different this year. And same for Champion, because I hadn't been playing them last year. But just in terms of those special card limit of 6, the sub limit of 2 prize cards is there for Challenger. Minimum gold rarity. So there's no bronzes or silvers in Challenger. But you can play diamonds and you can play legends in Challenger. And then Champion as well, there's no salary cap. It's just a free-for-all. However, there's a cap on special cards, so you can only play a maximum of 6 special cards in Champion, just like Challenger. However, there's no sublimit for prize cards, so you could play 6 prize cards if you wanted to, and that's your 6 special card limit. There is also a limit on legends, so even though there's no salary cap, you can't just put a full team of legends in. There's a limit of 8 in that competition, and the minimum rarity that you can be entering a player is platinum. So they're kind of our key competitions. But again, for new coaches, you're probably starting off in starter and contender and then adding a classic team in as you build up some cards like those rewards packs. And that's probably the best thing about GTS, right? You compete and you win packs every single week, regardless of where you finish. You might get a podium and earn some cash on top. And you can slowly start to build your team and your club across the season without putting a single dollar in.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to touch on. You mentioned that, excuse me, you mentioned that you would play a classic side and just sort of a bit of a throwaway team. But that's where you do make up some extra packs. So even if you do have these cards lying around and you know you're not going to be competitive early on in Classic, still really important you get that team together. If you jag that top 500 spot, you're still going to get some bronze packs to at least continue to build that squad depth. That's when you can start playing across multiple competitions. That's where you can start building that squad depth. So definitely one of the big things that we always say is make a team. Doesn't matter if you're not sure about whether they're playing or not, or if they're going to score well, get them into your squad. Get a full team sorted, then you're going to end up with some packs at the end of that week. And the best part about GameDay Squad, we always talk about it. Come Monday morning, you can press that clear squad button, and that completely wipes your squad, whether it's been good or bad week. It's quite cathartic doing that sometimes on a Tuesday morning for me after a poor week in rugby league in particular. I can press that clear squad and I can restart the week following. And I guess the other thing there is, we don't need to worry about injuries or buys or any other suspensions or rep duty, anything like that, because we can just build based on what we've got in front of us for that week. So really important to consider that. Also important to consider how you're going to use some of those, that salary in terms of the gold and silver when we start getting some of those better cards and how you might distribute that. And that's a bit of the strategy that I really love in that sort of that contender classic competition in particular, where you might have a gold Marinoff and you sort of want to look at, do I play in the contender where I'm going to get 20% more than anyone else that plays the bronze? That's going to be something that I think challenges coaches a lot this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one thing that I've probably gotten a bit better at in the men's side of things this year. It's my first year doing Classic. I played starter and contender last year when I sort of came in. I started men's Aussie rules after the mid-season buys last year. So I only played starter contender. This year is my first in Classic, and it's really been sort of getting my eye in with my salary. I feel like in the last 6 weeks, I've really started to nail it. You're never going to get it 100%, obviously. That's kind of the nature of fantasy sports, but I feel like I've been getting better at that, which is really good. And that's the stuff that keeps you playing every single week, is because it's exciting and it really does test your knowledge. I think the other thing there too, mate, just touching on all that, I'll just flick over to the next slide here. With our GameDay Squad competitions, we've got new special competitions this year. So it's not just 3 standard comps you can choose to play in. So you can choose starter, contender, classic. You could choose classic, challenger, champion. I think the other combination is contender, classic, and challenger. That's your other variation you can have, which is what Haz and I are going to be playing this year. We like that contender, classic, and challenger. That's probably us at the moment. But you've got 3 new special competitions, so it's just more ways to be winning packs and prizes and building your club. Primetime in particular, which I'll talk about now as well, across in rugby league this year, we've seen that competition be introduced in AFL, Aussie rules. We've seen it introduced there. For me, mate, because there's no salary cap in primetime, I can't quite compete with some of those coaches who have been playing for a long time. And I'm fine with that because I reckon every single week I have been placing somewhere around that 20 to 30, 35 mark each week. That gets me like a rare pack or a 9-player common pack. And there's the odd week where I do actually go okay and get a 9-player unique as well. So these packs you just accrue over time. It makes a really big difference. And if you're playing primetime, as you can see on screen there's no salary cap. There's no special card limit. All rarities are playable. The only thing there is that it's a legend limit of 8. So just like Champion before, because anyone can play in this primetime comp. It's just sort of making sure that a coach who maybe has a full team of legends at their disposal, they can't just use it in prime time. They've got to pick 8 and then they've got to go elsewhere after that. So that's probably the only difference with prime time this year. I say this year, it's our first year seeing prime time, particularly in women's Aussie rules, but it's one thing to note. And the other thing to note too, if you've played prime time in rugby league and men's Aussie rules, you know it's a Thursday, Friday night competition, not in women's Aussie rules. Women's Aussie rules prime time is Saturday games only. So that's really important to note that you don't just go start plugging away your Thursday and Friday games. You've got to do Saturday games, okay? And then throughout the year, there might be a round where there's actually no Saturday games available and therefore there's no prime time for that particular week. So just keep an eye out for that. But otherwise, it's much the same. You're happy for me to just roll through 22s and Sunday Showdown there, mate? Or is there anything you want to touch on in terms of prime time?
Just before we do that, look, Primetime, it is brought to everyone by the Stats Lab. So they're a sponsor of the GameDay Squad as well. And so it's Stats Lab Primetime. And we're going to talk about Stats Lab a little bit more because we absolutely love what they're putting out over on the statslab.app. So we'll direct everyone to that website as well because they've got some unreal data that we definitely use and we look at when we are building our squad. So that is the Stats Lab Primetime competition.
Yeah, it's unreal. Go check it out. I use it all the time. And as we're building our show each week for the Men's Aussie Rules, I know you guys do it for Rugby League, we're always looking at all the tools they've got over there. It's really handy. And they've just updated it with all the AFLW data. So you can actually sign up. You can go check it out. They've got matchup data for the past 2 years. They've got all the player scores they've had on previous oppositions. So handy, particularly as we enter a new season. We will talk about some matchup stuff later on just quickly.
Yes, we will.
Yeah, and under 22s, however, the competition, I love the under 22s comp in Aussie rules, and it's great to see it come into play in women's Aussie rules because we've got some serious players under 22, and it's so good to have a place to play them. And particularly women's Aussie rules, it's dominated by some big midfielders, and it's very hard to kind of go away from them in a standard competition. But now you have a place to play these young players that you're really excited about. And it's just another way to test your fantasy knowledge. So, yeah, I can't speak highly enough of this competition in particular. To put it in context, you get a $16 million salary cap. So that's just under Challenger and a little bit more than Classic. So it's kind of in between those two standard competitions if you wanted to think about it that way. There is a special card limit of 3. So you can only play a maximum of 3 all-star cards, and there's a sub-limit of 1 prize card. So again, that might look like 1 prize card and 2 all-stars. It could look like 3 all-stars. And you don't have to fill out those. It's just that's the limit. However, the thing to note is that who have we got in under 22s? I'm pretty sure it's Zali Goldsworthy. She's an all-star. She might even have multiple all-stars. There is a Matilda Scholes, and there is a Montana Ham. I'm just not quite sure if I'm forgetting anyone. They're the 3 off the top of my head that I'm clearly aware of. However, Zali Goldsworthy is going to miss the first half of the season, unfortunately, through injury. So I don't think coaches should be playing any more than really 2 at this stage. However, the thing is there might be another prize card of a particular player. Like you said, they're one of one. So there could be a coach out there who has a particular prize card. I haven't done the research myself to go and actually find all those players. But, yeah, they're our limits for our special and our prize card. You can play bronze cards here, which is really, really good. So the only thing there is that you can only play up to 6 bronze cards. So it's kind of the reverse thinking, right? Normally you think about who you're putting salary on, but it's good in this competition. You go, okay, well, who are the 6 that maybe I'm probably least confident on, or which ones do I think might be my 6 lowest scores, and I'm going to try and put bronzes in of them. And then you're kind of going to go in on some other players and put some salary on. So that's going to be really interesting. 6 bronze cards are available that you can pick, and all other rarities are playable. So you can play silver all the way through to a legend card, which is really exciting. So you can really spread your salary in so many different ways. And I should say with those bronze cards, as I said, you could play up to 6, but it doesn't mean you have to play 6 bronze cards. You could spread your salary a bit more evenly, completely up to the coach. And it's going to be really interesting to see what strategy comes out on top each week. The other big thing about under 22s coaches have to be aware of is that only one ruck can be selected. Typically, we've got 2 rucks in a standing comp. You have one on field and one on the bench, whereas now we have an on-field flex position, and the bench spot for your ruck has to be a ruck. So I think most coaches will play Matilda Scholes in that ruck spot off the field. I don't think you'll be playing anybody else in that competition. And then on-field flex could be anyone. It could be a midfielder, it could be a defender, it could be a forward, completely up to you. So that's part of the strategy of under 22s and one reason why it makes it such an exciting competition.
Yeah, the thing I love, and you touched on it with the bronze in particular, we talk a lot on our shows about point of differences and sort of how we go about those point of differences. Do we put some salary on them? Because if the point of difference does go off and we've got some salary, that can be huge for our side. Or do we just play it safe and look at the salary pods in terms of everyone's going to play X player, let's just put as much rarity on as possible so that we get that 5, 10, 15, 20% more than any other coach. And that's where the strategy comes in. That's what I love about that up to 6 bronze cards now in the under 22s. I also really love the flex spot with the ruck. Obviously, not enough rucks to necessarily be picked. So let's open it up and have a look at what can we do? How can we benefit from that? Is the matchup really good for a defender versus, you know, like you said, you're going to play a lot of midfielders throughout the season in the regular competitions. Can we mix it up a little bit? So I really love what they're doing there with the under 22s.
Yeah, it's so good, and there's no other fantasy comp that gives you this opportunity. And we love all our young players when they come into the system, and we know they do take a little bit of time to develop before they can sort of, from a game day squad perspective, enter our standard competitions. So we get to play them somewhere, which is really good.
And just quietly, just before we move on, it's one thing that I've just moved into on the men's Aussie rules side. I've just been able to put together an under 22 side now with some of the cards that I've picked up, purely from playing starter over the season and having some really good close wins. And I had second on the weekend, again, thanks to the Fantasy Bros and all the work that they've done. They've really helped. And I'm now at a point where I can start putting out an under 22s. Again, not super competitive. I think 91st or 95th the week just gone, but it still means that I'm racking up some packs and it's just adding to my depth as well. So again, it's another competition where you can just get involved if you know a couple of extra additional players that are, you know, under that 22, and you know that they're going to be guns for the next couple of years. Then you want to pack them, you want to get them in your squad. There's plenty of other ways to be able to get them as well outside of the packs, and we can talk about the marketplace and how we can buy and sell and trade players as well on top of that. So yeah, there's plenty of opportunity. I love it.
Yeah, heaps. And mate, the final special competition is our competition, the Fantasy Bros Sunday Showdown. And hey, just quietly in the Aussie rule side of things, I know we've got our round 21 preview show, round 22 coming up this weekend. Wednesday, we're going to preview. Haz and I, we're into the quarterfinals, mate. So I'm hoping that one of us could take out the Fantasy Bros Sunday Showdown competition with our name. That would be unreal. But this competition, mate, for Women's Aussie Bros, I'm really excited about it as well. All the special comps are great. This one, so same salary cap as Classic, if you want to put a bit of context to it. And obviously, it's only Sunday games, right? So only the Sunday fixtures. You can pick players from those particular games, and they fill out this squad. There's a special card limit of 2 and a sub limit of 1 prize card, just like Classic. So 2 All-Stars or 1 All-Star, 1 prize card. No more than that. Bit like the under 22s, you can play bronze cards, but only up to 6. All other rarities are playable, and you can only play 1 legend. So you do have to, again, in this competition, be really considered with who you're picking and where you're putting your salary. So it's a really exciting comp, and we will talk about what that might look like, this competition, for round 1, where it's split across a couple of weekends. But yeah, just another great way to play Game Day Squad.
And just quietly, FantasyBros Sunday Showdown on the league side. FantasyBros Stu definitely got his golden ticket and is in the finals. And I came fourth over the weekend. And I think I've probably snuck into the wild card position as well. Hopefully that finalizes and I can see myself in there as well. So plenty of Fantasy Bros in the Fantasy Bros Sunday Showdown, which is great to see.
I'm glad there is. I was a bit worried at the start of the year that I might not get in there. I'm not sure how that would have looked for myself, but I'm glad I snuck in.
We've done it. Okay, look, I've jumped in. I'm new to GameDay Squad. I've played a little bit. I've done some rugby league. I've done some Aussie rules. I did a little bit of football, but I haven't done any women's Aussie rules. I've never watched before. I'm going to jump in. This is the season. I'm going to get involved. I'm going to start supporting this awesome competition. Who are the players that I want to pick, and why do I want to get these 5 in particular?
Mate, there are so many good players, and I think that's one thing I love about the women's Aussie rules. The game itself, from a football point of view, has come such a long way, and it's such a good watch now. The Australia versus Ireland game on the weekend was a spectacle, and I sat there. I was glued to it. I seriously was, and my son as well. We watched it together, and it's such a great game. So I think from itself, it's because it is so good, we've got so many good players to be picking. It's hard to just pick 5, but I did want to really highlight again that in women's Aussie rules, there are some really big scorers, particularly in that midfield line. So Ebony Marinoff, Laura Gardner, Ash Riddell, and Jazz Garner. They are 4 guns in particular that you want to pack. Now, you could also probably throw a Kiara Bowers, for example, from Freo into that conversation. There's still some other high scorers as well, but kind of after that 5, it does drop off a little bit. And I threw Mim Strom from Fremantle in there on slide as well from our ruck line. She's pretty much the premier ruck in the women's Aussie rules competition. And yes, we will talk about another younger ruck who can score just as well in Matilda Scholes. We'll talk about her. But these 5, it's very hard to go past them. Like Ebony Marinoff in particular, she is the fantasy GOAT for AFLW. And I've got some scores thanks to the Stats Lab. I haven't done much research here, mate. This is just a bit of off the cuff sort of stuff, but actually looking at some of the scores, it is ridiculous. I'll ask you actually, in a squad for Aussie rules, what's a good score you want from a midfielder? Like if you get a score from them and you go, yep, I'm happy with that, what would you say?
Yeah, probably about 130 to anything above 130. I think I'd be really happy with it. When I look at it, I go, have they cracked 100? I'm happy. If they've cracked 100, then I'm pretty happy with that. But yeah, about that 1 to 130, I think is probably a good score that we want from the men's side of things.
Well, Ebony Marinoff did not drop under 100 last season. She averaged 150 GDS points, and she had a high of 191 points. It is ridiculous, some of the stats that she puts up. And can I tell you, last year was a down year for her. She averaged more the year before. She is absolutely ridiculous. So she can go over 200 GDS points. Just that's a base bronze card. You could play a diamond of another midfielder, and her bronze will outscore it pretty easily. So it's kind of why if you've got an Ebony Marinoff sitting there, or you've got a couple bronze cards, like you're playing those lower competitions, chuck it in Classic. You may as well. She's just an absolute gun. And shout out to Bales from the AFL Fantasy Fanatics. She's probably his favourite player from the women's side of things. And yeah, for that exact reason, she absolutely stuffs all the stat lines. She does everything. She tackles, she marks, she kicks. She's just an absolute jet. So that scoring average of 150 last year, you want to pack her. Everyone will want to. And Jazz Garner, she's probably just the AFLW GOAT in general, like from a football point of view. And then fantasy-wise, she scores just as well, obviously, as an Ebony Marinoff. But in a similar vein last year, she probably was a bit down last year. I think a couple injury games, like there was one game there against Freo in round 3. She was injured on 59. And I think against the Bombers as well in round 7, she had an 84. Not like her in terms of those, but again, it was a couple injuries. But she had a high score in round 2 of 194 GDS points. And again, round 1 last year was against the Cats. She had 153 GDS points. Guess who she plays in round 1 this year?
Oh, I love it.
The Cats.
Load up.
So, again, Jazz Garner, she's an absolute GOAT. She's so good. Captain the Australian team, was best on ground on the weekend. So you want to pack her. And likewise, her teammate in Ash Riddell. So she's so good. The thing with Ash Riddell is that she doesn't quite stuff all the stat lines. She's not big on her tackles like the other 2 I've spoken about are. However, the one thing she does is that she accumulates mass possessions. So she can get over 40 touches, close to 50 disposals a game. And she actually set and broke the disposal record twice last season. So she broke the record and then she re-broke her own record in that same season. And she had the highest score out of those two I've already spoken about. She scored 201 GDS points in round 2 against the Power. So you had Ash Riddell go 201 and you had Jazz Garner go, what did I just say? 194 in the same game. So these three, they have massive scoring potential. However, the one I like the most is Laura Gardner. She is my favorite. She has the highest score out of everyone so far. 205 GDS points was her highest against the Crows in round 7 last year, and they play the Crows in round 1. So you're going to see Laura Gardner and Ebony Marinoff go toe-to-toe and put up some massive points for their coaches. But she was incredible last year. She also averaged 149 GDS points. She stuffs all the stat lines, tackles, marks, kicks, goals. And the other thing with Laura Gardner too, 100% time on ground. She does not come off the ground. And the other thing is she will not go forward. That's 100% time on ground around the footy, just tackling, getting kicks. And the thing with Laura Gardner from a footy point of view that I love is that she's so clean with the footy in hand. Like she'll get that football and she'll break a tackle and get out of that congestion and get ball to boot. Not the best kick. That's probably one part of her game she's trying to improve, but we don't lose points for that in GDS. But just her ability to get out of congestion and get it on the boot means she's going to be scoring more points than a player who's maybe a bit more handball happy. So, yeah, Laura Gardner, I love her. She's number one for, well, there's so many to go number one. I think she's number one for me. Obviously, Marinoff, Riddell, Garner, and Mim Strom in the ruck. She's just, been such a good player, and you want to be packing her too. She'll be one of the best rucks again this season and has been an all-star in the past couple seasons.
Yeah, nice. Look, I'll be honest. I did get a little bit trigger happy before the show started. I did open a couple of my starter packs. So every season you get a whole bunch of starter packs to begin the season where you get your bronze cards to start out. I did open a few and I've just had a look. I do have all 5 of them in bronze, and I've got a few additional of them as well. So I will be able to use them in a couple of extra comps. But look, outside of those 5, maybe you don't have 1 or 2 of them. That doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to win the week. And this is where I think part of the analysis and maybe part of watching your show in particular and following what you are talking about in terms of some stats and matchup data and things like that is where else can we look for some point of differences. And there's a bunch of players on screen, and maybe just pick out a couple who you think are going to have a big season, maybe take a next step forward, and who are we looking out for then in terms of what we're packing over the next couple of days before the start of the season.
Yeah, well, I kind of picked out those top scorers from last season. A lot of these players you'll see on screen are our all-stars. And a few of these players we're actually going to talk more about in a second as well. Some of them are still quite young that we probably consider a dynasty asset. Others we're just really excited about because of a role change, or maybe they've moved club. But you can see them all there on screen. Probably in terms of those defenders, a Charlie Thomas is one I'm really excited about, but she's been such a good player. You know, for her early time in the AFLW. She's not quite eligible for the under-22s comp, but I reckon she'd be 22 on the dot, turning 23. She's still very young, and she's such a good user of the footy. So I'll talk about her in a sec. In terms of the midfielders, I mentioned Kiara Bowers, so she's probably stiff to miss out on that previous slide. She's also got elite scoring potential from the Freo Dockers and has done for a very long time. She's a bit older as well, but she can still score up there with the best. Mon Conti, bit of love for Mon Conti. Again, she's another one that I just love watching. She's such a good footballer. And even on the weekend in that Australia versus Ireland game, like she showed her class, the way she was able to pick that footy up off the ground. She was clean. And again, just is a really good player to watch. So I love Mon Conti. And I think that most players or most coaches will be looking to play a Mon Conti in their midfields. And I guess with that midfield, right, we have 6 positions to fill. So you've got your 5 on field and your 1 on the bench. So even if you look at those players on the slide, that was 4 before that I talked about from the midfield. You're going to have to pick another 2, right, from this list or from other players to round out your midfield. And I think any of those on screen can be pretty good on any given week. And as I said, an Ella Roberts, I think, is somebody we'll talk about again in a second. In the rucks, Matilda Scholes, I've alluded to her already. She'll come up again in that dynasty asset section. But a Lucy Wales is also a very solid ruckman, and so is an Ali Morford. I think one of those 4 rucks, Strom, Scholes, Wales, and Morford, you'll probably be looking at each week. Don't think you'd be going outside of those too much, but I guess that's the good thing of our special comps, right, is I think some of these are actually forcing our hand to look outside of that. We also have a player who was a forward last year who has had a position change. She's now eligible as a ruck this year. Probably should have put her on slide. Imogen Barnett from the Collingwood Magpies. So I think in this primetime competition for round one, we're probably looking at an Imogen Barnett in our ruck line, just given the fixtures and where they fall and who's playing on what day. So an Imogen Barnett's probably another one we mentioned. And forwards, as you can see, Michaela Bowen, I'll talk about her and why I'm so excited about what she could bring this year. But there's some pretty solid names there. And Chloe Molloy, Courtney Hodder, Bonnie Toogood. They're pretty staple names for our AFLW fantasy. But an Ellie Blackburn as well. She's someone that we have to talk about. She's been a midfielder in GameDay Squad, or last year she was a midfielder. She plays midfield and goes forward for the Western Bulldogs. But she's eligible in GameDay Squad as a forward this year. So it's really exciting when we can pick a player in our forward line who plays a midfield role for their team, because it just gives them more opportunities to score points, and it kind of raises their floor. So yeah, an Ellie Blackburn should have a good season in GameDay Squad.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we talk about a lot on the rugby league side of things, is where are our cheat codes? Where are those out of position players where we're going to get a little bit extra because they're playing in a touch dependent position, sort of in the halves or something like that, but you can pick them in the centre. I feel like that's really the same way for Ali Blackburn.
Yep.
Based on what you're saying, is that you are getting this advantage where it is a bit of a cheat code, playing out of position in terms of the tag that she has in the forward line, but playing in the midfield where she's going to see a lot more ball. So yeah, from a fantasy perspective, I think that's unreal. And I love that when we get to find these little cheat codes and these little hacks where we can sort of take advantage of that for our fantasy purposes.
Yeah, exactly right. And you keep an eye on that matchup data and you go, it's a good midfield matchup, and she's eligible as a forward. And the thing with Ellie Blackburn is that she can score quickly too. So yeah, I really like her this year, mate.
Right, let's talk about these 5 players. So you've picked out a few and you've talked about a couple. Kick us off. Your prize card. Start in the middle, mate. Talk her up. Big thing about what's happening this year and why are you getting her in every one of your squads?
Oh, look, the big thing, I guess one I've already talked about why I picked her last year was because of that position change. She was a midfielder for us last year in GameDay Squad. However, she had a role change last season at the Magpies. They put her behind the ball. So she was playing a halfback role where she was the key distributor out of that back line. And she looks so good doing it. Having that season, she's 25 years old. She made the All-Australian team. And her scoring, it's not enough to pick her in the midfield line, which is really disappointing. So she has an average of 96 GDS points. So it's just not going to cut it when you're picking a midfielder. Like I rattled off, Marinoff, they had averages of 150. So yeah, you weren't looking at her last year, but with this change, there's some good scoring in there. And I look back at this and I went far out. Like as a defender, I actually have her in my top 5 defenders for season 2026 based off what she did last year, and she's got the same role. So she had a 96 average, season high of 144 GDS points in round 4, but she had a 3-game stretch there of 144, 118, and 116. So that's elite scoring in AFL women's, particularly in that back line, sort of speaking there. Season low of 62, which is actually not bad given the back line. There's that you can actually get some worse scores in the back line. But otherwise, she's pretty solid. Like to end the season, she had 94, 120, 81, and 80. So she's a very solid player, and she's a footballer too. She's a proper footballer. She's tough as woodpecker lips. You know what you're going to get from her every single week. High 90% time on ground. I rate Tani White. And more importantly, mate, she is a Brisbane girl. When I was learning how to become a teacher, mate, she was at the school that I was doing a placement at. So it's great to see, people like that doing really well.
So close personal friend.
Of course.
Whitehead.
Yeah,
Is that what
of
we're
course.
saying?
She would definitely remember who I am.
All righty, talk to us about one player that I've seen a little bit of chat around in the Discord in particular, Zippy Fish, and how excited you are for her 2026 season.
Yeah, I just want to say good luck to everyone trying to get her cards, because for some reason they're so hard to come by. However, bingo night last night, mate, we actually had a fair few people catch a fish, which was really good in a pack. So have you had any Zippy Fish in your bronze starter packs?
I better have a look now. I don't remember seeing her. I've got one. There we go. I've got one. So
can you open your squad? Can you put that in your back line right now? And she's not going to leave that position for this entire year. She is again, I'm talking. It's probably a phrase I'm using quite a bit, but she's a proper footballer. There's a few players that are, and I say that because it's the way they use the football, and they're so skillful, and she's incredibly skillful that Sydney have trusted her as their designated kicker out of the back line. She had her first year, it was her debut season last year, and she averaged 100 GDS points. Her first 3 ever AFLW games, she had 119, 114, and 110. She has a season high of 144 in round 8. And they talk about, in men's Aussie rules, we get the second year blues, but in the AFL women's, we actually get the second year breakout. So I don't know how she can improve on that last year, but probably one way I think she could is the fact that they know how good she is. They've seen her and they just go, right, this back line, Zippy, it's yours. You take all our kick-ins. We trust the ball in your hand. We want you bringing it out. And they'll look to get the ball in her hands at any point possible. So I think everyone in the GDS community, in the footy community, is really big on a Zippy Fish. So you want to try and see her if you can. And I just said that she was a midfielder last year, and she's now a defender this year. So eligible for our 22s comp as well. You want her there. You want her in the 3 competitions you're playing in. So you want some stocks in Zippy Fish. My only concern with the Zippy Fish is that I think she has to cop some attention this year. I think teams will start to have to look at her influence off halfback, which might mean we see some players go to her possibly. Not a reason to fade, of course, but just one thing I'll flag. But she's a star, mate. You want to be getting her in your sides. And Charlie Thomas on screen, as you can see, probably a similar thing for West Coast. She's one of the designated kickers there for the Eagles, and she's been doing it for a few years now. Just missed out on that 22s competition, but she's still quite young. She's been an All-Star for 2023, All-Star 2024. She's been an All-Australian. Bit of a down year last year, which wasn't quite like her, but I expect her to bounce back this year and bounce back in big fashion. I just have a feeling that she's going to go absolutely bunter this year and have a really nice season, and I reckon she'll be a pretty easy lock for our All-Star collection come season's end. We saw on the weekend, or previous weekend, she played in the Australia vs Ireland game, but her game against West Coast, they actually played her through the middle, which is really exciting, and she had a really good score there too. But I think West Coast, if they can look her to put her in the midfield at times and then just know she's got the keys to that designated kicker roll-off halfback, I think she's a really good pick again this year, and just someone I'm super excited about because I just love watching her play.
Yeah, love it. Alrighty, let's get across now to some players that we're looking forward to, more so for the future. And that's, I guess, the other big thing that we haven't really touched on yet is that GameDay Squad is a dynasty platform. Once you've packed that card is yours until that player retires, or you trade or sell that card away, obviously. But so from a dynasty perspective, we can have those cards forever as long as they're playing in the AFLW. We can use them each week in, week out. Who are some of the names, along with Zippy, that you really want to get your hands on, looking more towards the future?
Yeah, and there's so many, right? Ella Roberts is probably the one I'll start with, the big one that, check your cards, because I think she was a play even last year in a standing comp. You'd play her every now and then, or not every now and then, she's more common than that, right? But she's probably the one where it is a bit more matchup dependent for her in a standing competition. She's the number 1 midfielder for West Coast. She's the number 1 player for West Coast. I know I did just speak highly of Charlie Thomas, but Ella Roberts is their star, and she's going to be one of the best players in the AFLW, if not the best player, when she's in her absolute prime. Because as I said, she is still quite young. She's going to be the captain of my under-22 side, mate. I was fortunate enough through some good coaching to have packed her diamond in the preseason. So she's the captain of my 22s team, but she's an absolute star. As I said, you'll play her in standing comps, mate. She's an absolute gun. Even in terms of her scoring, she's had some really high scores as well. So she had a 164 to finish last season in the final series against the Blues. But she had other scores. So 3 times she went over 140. So if we expect some growth from her as well, she's someone that you want to have. Havana Harris for the Gold Coast there as well. She's had an incredible preseason game, and she had her first year in the competition last year. Did pretty well, but I sort of expect her to just, again, that's the second year breakouts. I think that she can just get better, and she's one of those players I think Gold Coast will just give the license to do whatever she wants and go anywhere. She can kind of play in the ruck. She'll go forward. She's a bit like one of those Luke Jackson types in the AFL that you could almost just play her on ball if you wanted to, and she could just handle it. So, yeah, I really like a Havana Harris for our under-22 side. Matilda Scholes, She is the poster girl of the AFLW. You see her all over socials. She's very active with that. And yeah, you have to tune into a Port game and watch her play, mate, because she plays in the ruck, she dominates, she runs around the ground, a bit like a Rowan Marshall or a Tim English in the men's. She just does absolutely everything and hits the score lines. So yeah, she's one you want to make sure you have lots of stocks on if you can. And then Ash Centra and Sophia Hurley as well. I think a lot of people might have heard of an Ash Centra before. She was the number 1 draft pick going into last season. And again, did well, probably not as good as some other players like a Zippy Fish, so to speak. But I think Ash Centra this year in the under 22s comp, just that second year in the system, she poses as a really good option. And Sophia Hurley in that Sydney Swans outfit. I just want to raise her because people might have forgotten a little bit about her. She can score really, really well. And I think that she'll be a play almost every week in our 22 side.
Yeah, unreal. I love that. Look, we are getting close to the end of the show, but we're going to touch on a couple of things, and then we're going to do a little bit of a pack opening. But I just wanted to mention that you will be coming to YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcast each and every week. We'll be pre-recording some shows for weekly previews. You'll have a bit of rotating guests, but you and Haz hopefully will be the mainstays there, and there'll be plenty of analysis to go around, and we're going to get to a little bit. You've already touched on so many numbers already and thrown so many great names. And look, my team's starting to come together quite nicely. I've just off screen, I've been plugging in my starter side already, just based on some of the names you've been throwing at me. I've been pretty happy that I've got those cards already there. So don't forget though, if you haven't got those cards, you can use that promo code FBARW26 when you sign up to get those packs. So you get 3 9-player common packs. Common packs have silver all the way through to potentially a legend as well. So plenty of opportunity to get those salary. But let's jump into round 1. What are you looking forward to most about round 1 fixtures?
I reckon the first game. I think that's that season opener. There's so much excitement around it. They're playing it at Marvel Stadium, so it's going to be the curtain raiser to the men's game, and that's probably why they're playing it on that particular day. So you'll have the women's game rolling into the men's. So that's so exciting, and I hope they play more games at Marvel Stadium because, yeah, that women's game, as I said, mate, it's going gangbusters, and they need to be making sure they're prioritising it and playing at some of those grounds. So that's probably the one I'm looking forward to most. And another reason why I'm looking forward to that one is because that is contributing towards the FantasyBros Sunday Showdown competition. So as you can see on screen, you have Sunday, 9th of August. That's this weekend. You need to decide if you're locking in any Saints or any Blues when teams drop. They need to be in your squad. And likewise, you need to have a full squad locked in at the start of that game for the entire round. So really, it's just get a squad together and just make sure if you're putting any Saints or Blues in your squads, you're happy with them because you won't be able to change them. They'll be locked out. Those scores will count to your round 1 scores. You can then still change after that. So it doesn't actually matter who you put in from any other team. Put in whoever. They can be injured. They can not be playing. It doesn't matter. You then swap as you go. We're going to get teams the following week for all those next games. So you kind of need to be onto it a little bit for this first round. It's probably where it's a bit disjointed. But just really lock in for that first game. Are you going to pick any Saints or any Blues? And then you can kind of do the rest after that. But as I said, yeah, it's going to count to your Sunday Showdown, as are the following Sunday games. Sunday, 2nd of August, are also counting. Oh, I had the wrong date. Apologies. I have to double check that date. 20, what would that be? 16th of August. Yeah, Sunday, 16th of August. That's also going to be counting. So you got your Bombers and your Lions. You got your Crows and your Swans. You got your Dockers and your Power, and the Giants and the Eagles. So you've got 5 games where you could be picking players from for that Sunday Showdown in round 1. Lots of teams, lots of players. So yeah, that's going to be a really big one. That's the big thing to mention there. Your Stats Lab Primetime. Obviously, you've got your North Melbourne Kangaroos against your Geelong Cats. You've got your Tigers against your Magpies, and you've got the Suns against the Bulldogs there. They're the 3 games you can be picking players from for your Stats Lab Primetime competition. And obviously the Thursday night that week, we have our Hawks and our Melbourne, which won't be contributing towards a special competition, but there might be some under 22s that you're keen on in that particular game.
Yeah, love that. Look, I love the split round there with the kickoff of the FantasyBros Sunday Showdown starting. If we're looking at that in particular, just throw out 2 names that you might be playing for your Sunday Showdown from that first game on that Sunday, 9th of August.
Oh, you're putting me on the spot. Serene Watson in the back line. I think just put her in. I think she's named. She's a new captain of the St Kilda Football Club. She's a very solid defender, all-star from last year. I just feel like you're going to know what you're getting with her. But also it could be an Ash Richards in your forward line too. Ash Richards is a bit of a midfielder for the Saints. She has a high scoring potential. So I didn't talk too much about Michaela Bowen before, but she plays for the Cats. I know that's in a primetime fixture and it's not kind of this game, but Michaela Bowen and Ash Richards kind of fit in the same mold. They're a midfielder, but they're eligible as a forward, and they've got a high ceiling on their day. So I think probably they're the two I'm looking at this stage, and Ash Richards and a Serene Watson. Not sure if I'm going to go any Blues. You could maybe look at a Harriet Cordner, maybe in that back line for your Fantasy Bros Sunday Showdown, but probably not too many outside of that, I don't think, at this stage.
And I love that because I put you on the spot on purpose, because what we're going to talk about now is something you've talked about a little bit and touched on is one of the big things we look at when we start to build our fantasy sides is the matchup data. So talk to us about some of the best and worst matchups that we can have across this season based on the 2025 data that you've got available.
Yeah, and I guess this is probably one where we aren't sure how this is going to change at the start of the season. So I'm not going to be going out and building squads to really target these matchups heavily, but I did just want to put it on for our coaches if you wanted to know what last year looked like in terms of the best matchups to target and the worst matchups for each position. So I guess my key takeaway when I was putting this together and thinking back to last season is that you just don't want to pick too many players playing the Kangaroos or the Lions. Like, they've been in however many grand finals in the past few years. They're the strongest teams. The Kangaroos haven't lost a game in about 2 years. So, yeah, you don't want to pick too many, particularly when they've got an Ash Riddell having, nearly 50 possessions and Jazz Garner's just dominating. So they're the two teams you probably want to avoid pretty consistently across each line. And then in terms of teams to target, it's pretty spread, so to speak. But Richmond's been pretty good for defenders and midfielders. The Gold Coast League heaps of points to mids last season in particular. So that's where an Ellie Blackburn I'm excited by in this round one if she's playing through the midfield. I think that, it was a good matchup last year. We'll see if it changes. I know that the Gold Coast have picked up Anne Hatchard from the Adelaide Crows. So how does that change the midfield mix? Does it make it a bit more difficult for the opposition? We'll wait and see. However, based off last year, that should still be good. But yeah, as you can see, have a look at them on screen, and hopefully it helps across the first week or two. And check out StatsLab because that data is going to update each week.
Yep, and that is the statslab.app. So if you want to check them out, they will have the data for each and every game. They've got plenty of tools as well that I love to use, player comparisons. They've got the matchup data there as well, and the particular numbers that you can sort by and have a look at different matchups. And you can even go in and sort by players and how they perform when they've got certain players that they're up against or certain players that are in their side or out of their side, which is a function that I think can be really important when there are injuries and suspensions around as well, that a player might play a lot better when they've got one of their good mates in the side or something along those. So make sure you check out the statslab.app.
Absolutely. It's a great tool. Now, mate,
alrighty, we've teased a little bit, mates. Let's go. Let's get into it. So you've got a few packs to open today, and I think that you said that you were going to send all the cards to me. Is that right?
I absolutely will not, because I still need some more cards of those players we spoke about, mate. We've got so many. Definitely. We've got so many competitions. You need multiple players. We'll see. Hey, we'll see who I pack.
Just before you start opening some packs, one thing that has dropped today that I am absolutely loving is the player selection icon. So if your player is selected, you will now see a little green tick there, and you might be able to go in and have a quick look there. They might be available in the desktop version as well, or they might be loading still. But if they are selected, or when those team lists come through, you'll see a little tick there, a little icon, so that you know that your player is selected. There's also a few other icons based on various statuses, whether they're injured long term, whether it's suspended, whether they just haven't been selected at all. So keep an eye out for that, because that's going to help you build your squads as well. I know it's something that I'm really keen on. The other thing that you'll see when you have a look at player cards is the percentage that I've picked in squads. So you'll be able to see the percentage of teams that have taken that player. So you'd expect someone like Marinoff, etc., that we've talked about, to be close to that 100% if those squads have those cards. But keep an eye on that as well. Some great stuff happening over at GameDay Squad, just making sure that user experience is as good as possible.
Absolutely. Now, mate, these starter packs, let's open them. And then we'll go into the other ones as well and see who we can pack. Let's see if we recognize any names. Now, again, these starter packs, they're all bronze cards. No, I don't know a Franklin, unfortunately. That's what happens sometimes when you're opening these packs. You can get anyone, but they might be played at some stage anyway, as we know.
As I said,
Mia
some of
Bush.
yeah, good card.
Well, I actually saw good, long-term GDS coach there, absolute champion, Danny D, was asking for a Mia Bush today in the Discord. So
There you go.
I don't know if a good coach like that is chasing a Mia Bush. I'm actually not quite sure. I haven't heard too much about her. So good coach like that is looking for a card. I'm going to be holding on to that one.
So we've talked about these starter packs. They are free each and every week. You can earn those as well when putting your team together. When you first sign up, you're going to get a whole lot as well started. So those are sort of what the starter packs look like. Then we can get into these common packs. So we talked about signing up for the first time, FBARW26. You're going to get 3 of these bad boys, and there are 9 cards in these packs. And as I said, they range from silver all the way up to potentially a legend. So let's see if we can get something good.
Fingers crossed. See how we go. Alrighty, now should just be silvers and golds there in this pack based off that particular animation. Yep, so let's do the silvers first. All right, James from Collingwood, Jones, any other silvers? There we go. Eva, Fitzgerald, and I think there's golds there as well. Cool. Steph Wales, she's a ruck there. Grace Barber for the Hawks. Had a good roll off halfback, I think, in that last game. There we go. Maeve Chaplin. There's another name for your backline. Maeve Chaplin was one of our all-stars last season playing in the backline. Can score very well for the Demons there. So I think Maeve Chaplin's someone we're looking at in our backline most weeks there, mate.
Love it. All righty, let's get in the second pack. Come on, something good.
All righty. What else have we got in here? There we go. There's a platinum there.
Love it.
I wonder who that's going to be. Georgia Gall. I think that's Georgia Gall. Nurse for the Suns. Sophie Conway, just a stalwart for the Brisbane Lions there.
Love it.
All right, Reed, Bowering, Jenna Richardson for the Hawks. Oh, that is a good card.
Go.
Oh, go. Tell you what, far out. Platinum Tilly Lucas Rod's pretty good. So TLR, I didn't mention her when we got there. Tilly Lucas Rod is one of the better defenders in the game, if not, I probably won't say the best. She has changed clubs this year. She's gone from Hawthorn to GWS, so it's my only little flag on her is there's a change there. And I don't know why, but in the preseason game, they played her off the half-forward flank for some reason. So I'm assuming she'll go back behind the footy and she'll have that key distributor role, but it's just one little thing. She has changed clubs, but yeah, she was in Hawthorn colours. You'll see probably a Hawthorn All-Star card around on the trade market potentially at times, but yeah, she's a gun in your back line. Keep an eye out for a Tilly Lucas Rod in your packs.
Love it. You purposely didn't talk about it because you knew you were going to pack her for sure.
Oh, what have we got in here? That was a diamond animation or a legend animation? Oh, that's a legend.
Here we go.
Who's it going to be?
Legend straight up.
Okay, and a diamond next to it.
Wow, what a pack.
Oh, okay. Now, again, this is why he thinks that I'm lucky, mate. But I'm telling you, this is just good coaching. Libby Birch and Jenna Richardson. And Libby Birch is a stalwart there for the North Melbourne Kangaroos. All right, who else have we got there? Dempsey, I think that was the diamond. Yep. Platinum. Oh, get a book out, mate. Tyler Hanks. That's another name that you want to look for in the midfield. Gee, that's actually a good card too. This is a good pack. All right, we'll do the diamond first. Who's it going to be? Show us one of the big dogs. I'd love to see that. Who is it? Oh, Campbell. Her name escapes me there for the Lions. Solid player. We love a diamond card, though. We take that. And a legend. This is the big one. Who is it going to be? All right, revealing in 3, 2, 1. Oh, Thomas. I'm actually not quite sure on her first name, but that's okay. We take a red any day of the week, hey? So I'll do a bit of research on her after and find out who it is. That's a very handy rare pack, actually. Very good job. That is
unreal,
awesome.
Getting a legend, a diamond, and a platinum in that rare pack. So these are the kind of cards that you can pick up when you do get involved in Game Day Squad. And as we said earlier in the show, they can be used across a whole range of competitions. And, you might not necessarily know too much about your legend that you've packed there, but might be really handy in one of those special competitions. Might be a primetime player that you wouldn't normally play, but because it's Saturday only and you're restricted to those players only, it might find its way into your side. Yep. So I think that's the biggest upside with a lot of those special competitions and the way that GameDay Squad run those, is that we have this opportunity to play so many other players outside of the handful, the 5 or so that you're picking each and every week in your midfield, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're a new coach as well, and if you open that particular pack, and if that was in a common pack, or you got that rare pack through a rewards because you finished somewhere one week, if you open that and you go, I don't need a legend, I don't know who it is because I'm not playing in a particular competition where I'm going to use it, I just want to play starter and contender. Well, you could put that on the trade market. You could sell that card. You could trade it for something else. You could actually jump in the Discord, GDS Discord server, and you could say, hey, I've just packed this legend. Is anyone interested? Because I want to start stocking up on some silvers, some golds, some platinums. And there'll be a coach who will reach out and they will look after you. And again, I gave Danny D a mention. There's a few others as well there, and they've been really helpful to Haz, myself, and sort of when we come across cards that we maybe aren't necessarily going to get the benefit out of, they look after us with some really good trades. So to all our new coaches, make sure you do get involved. It's a great community, and that's how you can start building your club. It's just another way where you can get really competitive really quickly.
Yeah, and look, the Discord link will be in the description of the video on YouTube, and we'll put it into Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well, so that if you aren't involved in Discord, you can jump in and get involved in the GameDay Squad Discord. As you said, an awesome community. And look, it's never too late to get involved in any of the competition, whether you're just watching this for the first time and they're 3 weeks into the comp, or it's pre-season and you haven't opened GameDay Squad before. Make sure as well that you follow the Fantasy Bros. We're on Spotify, YouTube, we're on Apple Podcasts, Instagram, you name it, we're on it, TikTok, Facebook, etc. Because you and Haz are going to be putting out heaps of content, not just for the men's AFL, the Aussie rules, but the women's AFL Aussie rules as well. Stu and I do the NRL, and awesome, we've got NFL coming up as well. So plenty to look forward to from the Fantasy Bros. And look, I can say each and every week I follow you and Haz in terms of your Aussie rules picks, your men's AFL picks. And I'm currently sitting first in starter overall purely by following you. So if that's not a testament to the work that you guys have been putting on behind the scenes and then in front of the camera for each and every one of the subscribers and the followers, I don't know what is. So if you haven't yet followed us, make sure at FantasyBros AU across all of those socials because you can get some great insight. And you could be sitting where I am, currently first place in starter in a competition that I never thought I would even be playing.
Yeah, you never know, do you? And I think for the first week as well, just given how disjointed it's going to be, we might even look at putting together, and I'm just sort of spitballing here, mate, but like a template starter team just for round 1, just before the lockout of the first game, where if you go, I just need to get a squad in, even for a contender maybe, like we can just put a squad up on our socials and you can just copy that for that first week. And it should at least get you something competitive. So we might look at doing something like that, Dyl.
Unreal. So once again, at FantasyBros AU, check us out across all of those socials. And as you said, all of that season content is going to be coming to you in a whole lot of different forms. You're going to have some posts. You and Haz are very vocal in the Discord as well. If there's any changes to teams at all, Haz makes sure he updates everyone with those changes, and you'll see some of those changes happen on the GameDay Squad platform. Mate, just finishing off, what one thing in particular, what are you looking forward to most this season with the Women's Aussie rules?
From a football sense or a GameDay Squad sense?
Both.
Okay, football, I can't wait to see the Lions lift the Premiership Cup in the women's. I think they're going to knock off the Kangaroos on the grand final, and they're going to finally get them. So I think that's what I'm looking forward to most. But from a GameDay Squad point of view, I'm most looking forward to seeing Tani White run out for the first time, knowing I've got her prize card sitting in my squad, mate. I think it's so exciting in terms of why I spoke about it. And it's probably why I'm gunning so hard in men's is I want a prize card, and it's probably the best reward you can get in GameDay Squad. And it's something that it's 1 for 1. It's no other coach is going to hold that one particular card. Obviously, they can get the same player across another season, but it's got your name on it. It's got what you did that season. So I can't wait to see Tani White run out.
Mate, thank you so much for joining me. You've converted this rookie. I'm now jumping straight in to finish the rest of my women's Aussie rules starter side. So that's hopefully I can win a prize card come into the season just like you and Haz did. So thank you very much for sharing your insights. Make sure, again, to follow Haz and Pitty across all the content that they're doing over the next few months of AFLW. Thanks, mate, and have a good night.
Thank you. See you later.
Cheers. Thanks for tuning in to another episode by the Fantasy Bros. If you want to show your support, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this show on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. Also, make sure you check us out on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Just search @FantasyBros AU.